Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to another Burlingame It's a Small Town podcast sponsored by the Burlingame Historical Society. This is Mark Lucchese, also known as Mark at the Mic, and my guest today is a well-known realtor who was born and raised in Millbrae, but has made Burlingame his home for over 40 years. He has been a member of the Burlingame Lions Club for 25 years and is regularly seen running the show at the annual Lions Club Easter egg hunt. For 20 years, he has been singing bass and tenor for the St. Catherine's Church Choir, and he also has a great interest in local history. And now my conversation with Erik Winkler. Erik Winkler, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
You bet. Hey, Erik, my apologies. In the intro, I said your voice is a bass tenor when it's actually a bass baritone. Is that correct?
It is. That's correct.
Yeah.
The only time I'm a tenor is if my underwear is too tight.
We're going to talk a little bit more about that later on in the show, but my apologies, all right? Okay. So in the bio that you sent me, you were kind of born and raised in Millbrae. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Yeah. Do you still have any family living in Millbrae?
I do. So my mom just turned 90 years old earlier this year.
90.
And I have a younger brother who lives with her, and they're still in Millbrae in the same house that we were in for, it's just past 50 years she's been there. So
Terrific. So she's 90. You must go visit her quite a bit, I guess.
Yeah. Every other day I'm over there.
Good for you. Good. Can we talk about a few memories of growing up in Millbrae? Because I kind of grew up in Burlingame, but Kathy and I did spend some time in Millbrae, and maybe we share some of the same haunts and places like that. So where did you go to grammar school? In grammar school, I mean like K through, what is it, K through 5?
It was K through 6 back then.
Okay, it was. And where was that?
Yeah, that was at, the first kindergarten through second grade was at Meadows Elementary School.
Okay.
And then my parents had their home built in '73, so we moved and I went to Spring Valley School after that. And then middle school was at Taylor.
Where was Spring Valley located?
Spring Valley's on Murchison Drive.
Oh, really? On the big... Murchison's a big, whatever you want to call it, right?
Yeah,
big
it's
street.
in the lower part. So if it below Ashton, it's all in Millbrae on both sides.
Yeah,
and it's actually the site of the old Mills Estate.
Yeah,
is where that was built.
So when you were a youngster, and I mean K through 8th grade, and probably more middle school, where'd you guys kind of hang out? What parks would you go to?
Usually we just rode around the neighborhood.
Yeah.
That was the main thing, riding the bikes. I later in later years I had a paper route, but earlier years mainly just hanging out, maybe Sun Valley down on
Sun Valley Dairy.
Yeah, down there, and then also Hobbyville. One year in summer school, I think it was after around 4th grade, I went to a rocketry class, and Hobbyville.
Was that on Millbrae Avenue?
That was not on Millbrae. That was in the. I was actually in the Burlingame side. It was in the
plaza,
the Burlingame Plaza over there.
Yeah.
Right where, I can't remember exactly what's there, but in the northern half of it.
So you mentioned your parents had their home built.
Yeah.
Was Millbrae still kind of wide open back? What year was that? Give me a year.
That was in 1973.
So was Millbrae sort of still had a lot of area to build, or what?
Not too many. I mean, this was off Millbrae Avenue. Millbrae Circle was there were still a few lots available over there, and so they had the builder actually built a house for himself 3 years earlier, and then sold the lot to my parents next door. They shared a driveway that went up, and then the house was finished in '73. So
okay.
Yeah.
After middle school, that would have been Taylor, correct?
Yeah.
Where was high school?
High school was Mills.
I guess naturally, right? It was so close by.
It was, yeah. And I walked to school, all three schools. So,
yeah. How was high school for you? Where did you hang in high school? Where did you go? Any places in particular you guys go to?
It's funny. There used to be a rope swing right off Millbrae Avenue near the formal entrance from the top to the Mills Mansion, which there are still some colonnade, some things there. But there was a rope swing there. And that rope swing was really a great place to hang out. And Mills used to be an open campus, so we would go there and swing on that at lunchtime. And,
right.
Until some poor kid cracked his head open on it, then they took it down. And
then the rope swing
Then
goes
we had
away.
to do something else, yeah.
Did you go to any places in particular at high school? Like, was there pizza places around then? Some of the places I remember was Lions on El Camino, the 16 Mile House, which is really more for adults, I guess, than kids in high school, and Millbrae Pancake House, of course.
Well, in high school, my first job was working at Thrifty's. As soon as I turned 16,
That was
I
at the
walked
plaza
around.
also, wasn't
That was
it?
across the plaza where Lucky's, or
Oh, that's right.
Lucky
yeah.
that recently
Is that
closed was.
Murchison?
That's Murchison, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I worked there, and so from age 16 on, I would scoop ice cream there and do everything else that they had me do at the store. And,
Yeah.
and we would often go there for an ice cream cone after eating lunch. So
Yeah.
that was a fond memory.
And when you were in high school, besides maybe going to downtown Millbrae, did you ever come to Burlingame?
Not too often.
Really?
Yeah, usually if we went, if I went with my parents out to dinner or something. But Mom was a good cook, so we ate at home a
Yeah.
lot.
So you and your buddies wouldn't come down to the Avenue or go down to Broadway, Burlingame, or anything like that?
Once in a blue moon. I mean, I don't remember any businesses specifically from that time.
Right. Okay. While at Mills, is there any teachers that you would like to mention or acknowledge?
Actually, there's a teacher I'd like to mention. Mills was great. I had a great time in high school, but in middle school at Taylor, I had a great Spanish teacher named Mr. Kidd, and every time we needed to sharpen our pencil, we needed to stand up, hold up that pencil, and say, "Me puedo dar punto a mi lápiz, por favor."
Whoa, that was pretty good accent, Eric. Wow, he got through to you, man. So can you repeat that, please?
Me puedo dar punto a mi lápiz, por favor.
Okay, why don't you translate that?
I would like to give point to my pencil, please.
Okay. And you've never forgotten that one.
I have not. That stayed in my head, and he was a great teacher. He had a booming voice also.
Yeah.
And just that's something that came to mind.
Did that inspire you to take Spanish in high school?
Yeah. Yeah. So I had 2 years in middle school and then 3 years at Mills.
At Mills, terrific. So by the way, what year did you graduate from Mills?
83.
83. Your senior year was a lot of fun, I guess.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we had a ball. We had a great time. I didn't really play too many sports. I mean, I did a little cross country and ran track. I did the 880 and the mile, but didn't get too interested in team sports until after graduation.
Yeah.
I started watching football, and when the 49ers were doing great in the early 80s,
That's
when I
right.
started to get into that. So,
All right. So you graduate from Mills in 83. Where'd the journey go from there?
yeah, then I went to Sacramento State, and then after a couple of years, I came back and worked full-time at Thrifty until I got a job in in consumer finance, which would be personal loans, things like that.
Where was that, in Burlingame or Millbrae, or in the city?
Well, I worked at the Thrifty in Millbrae, and then eventually started working at a finance company in Belmont. And while I was there, the manager got his real estate license, and so a year later, that's when I got my real estate license. Went to the same live school. This is before any online things, and
Right.
so it was that's how I got into that.
That was the aha moment for you that said, I want to get into this real estate world. How old were you then?
I was 22 when I got my license.
Terrific. So you really got in early.
Yeah.
And you've been doing this for over, would it say
36 years.
36 years.
Yeah.
Good for you. Just wondering, do you still see any old high school buddies?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I still see Joe Toda. I see a lot of people. I can't even start to.
It's amazing how many guys
name them
were
all,
able to
but
stay in the area, huh?
Yeah. Well, many have moved out, but there are a number that are still here. And,
Yeah.
And I went to all 4 of the reunions. In fact, I was on the committee for the 30-year and 40-year reunion.
Good for you.
Yeah,
Good,
yeah,
good.
I really enjoy seeing these folks. And of course, nowadays with social media, especially Facebook for people our age, and Instagram for the younger ones, we can really keep in touch with folks.
Yeah.
Even if they've moved around the world, we can keep in touch as if they're next door.
I totally agree. It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got your real estate license. How did you end up in Burlingame? I mean, why did you go back to Millbrae? How did you end up in Burlingame?
Well, so I ended up, after I came back from college, I rented an apartment, and then a house became available in Burlingame on Victoria Road, and that was in the mid '80s. And then in 1989, my landlord was a very well-known local person, Larry Putman.
Oh yeah,
retired
former postmaster.
Postmaster, yeah, really nice guy. And while he was cleaning out the gutters and I was holding the ladder, he was up there and I was down here, and I said, "Hey, Larry, do you want to sell me the house?" And of course, you're not going to say no if someone's holding the ladder for you. So
Right.
The rest is history. I bought the house from him and worked with him on that, and then we got to know each other later on. When we talk about Lions, I'll bring him up.
Yeah.
Again. Yeah.
Where did Larry go after you bought the home?
So he was living on the other side on Cypress.
Oh, he was?
Yeah, and he passed away about a dozen years ago.
Oh, so you were renting Larry's home, and you said to him, "Hey, I'm holding the ladder, buddy. You want to
sell it to
house?"
me? Yeah.
Okay, no, I get it. That's great. Yeah. So you bought Larry's house.
I did.
Eric, I mentioned earlier that you've been singing in the St. Catherine's Catholic Church choir for 20 years, right?
Yep.
How'd that come about?
Well, I hadn't been going to church for quite a while, and something just kind of drew me to go to St. Catherine, which was the closest church, and I went there, and after Sunday Mass one day, I thought, oh, this is kind of nice. Let me come back again. The time I came back again, they had coffee and donuts afterwards, and that was right up my alley. So I went, had myself a donut, and while I was there, Larry Putman again, who was a longtime parishioner there, very, very, very involved over there, saw me. We chatted, and then some women were whispering to each other in the corner, and one of them was the choir director, and another one was an older woman who had been in the choir for many, many years. And I saw Larry point his finger at me, and I guess they were looking for men. As with the Catholic choir, they're always looking for men. And I guess I couldn't read Larry's lips, but I'm sure he said something to the effect of, this guy's got a big mouth. You got to go talk to him. Right. And the rest is history. That was around 2003.
Did you have to audition for that?
At St. Catherine, no.
Okay, so you just joined the choir. You read the hymns, or and you started singing.
Yeah, and I didn't really read music too well before. I learned a little bit of it. Yeah, playing guitar as a teenager, but I never really got serious with it. But then once you're looking at the music and you use your logic going up and down, and you start to learn things, you go to a few classes. Next thing you know, you're reading music. Yeah, and that's what I do now. So sometimes I can pick things up. I just got to make sure I don't pick it up off key. All
right. So for our listeners as well as myself, what does a bass baritone mean?
We're at the bottom of the barrel. So anything low, 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 that's where we are. Anything that gets too high, sometimes my voice will crack. So I try to avoid anything that goes over a high D or so.
Right. So would a tenor be more of a solo type person, or can a bass baritone be a solo as well, or what?
Both can be solos. I mean, a tenor has the next higher register, and they tend to hit the higher notes, and they're more noticeable in the background. Right. Just as a soprano is very noticeable with the vibrato at the very high end on the male spectrum, the same thing goes for tenors. Yeah. So, how many are in the choir? How many folks? We have about 25 at St. Catherine.
No way, and they all show up?
Not everybody shows up all the time.
What do you need as a minimum to make it happen? Is there a minimum, like you need at least 10 people there?
8 or 10 people, we can make it happen. If we have fewer, we still make it work. There's always a cantor there to sing the melody, and if we have some harmony, that helps.
Yeah. Is it female-dominated, or is it kind of 50-50?
No,
still female-dominated?
It's female-dominated, yeah.
All right. So over the years, I would imagine there's been some choir turnover?
There has.
I mean 20 years, man. You've been there a long time.
Yeah, people come, people go. Unfortunately, some of the older folks, they retire from choir, and sometimes eventually we all have to go, and sometimes they pass away. But we do have younger people that come in once in a while. We have seasonal folks. We have a Christmas concert. We have a midnight mass concert, which after COVID is now a 10 p.m.
It's 10 p.m.
10 p.m.
right?
mass, and so we sing right before that. Okay. And we just a couple weeks ago did an interfaith choral festival with 4 other choirs, and this was at Burlingame Presbyterian, or Burl Press as they call themselves now, and that was to benefit Life Moves.
So what you're saying is the 4 churches got
five altogether.
5 churches got together and took turns singing, or you sang collectively?
We sang collectively. Then we individual choirs had 2 pieces each, and then we did 2 finale songs. And then there was a little gathering with coffee and cookies. And
it was kind of a fundraiser?
That was a fundraiser for Life Moves.
Good for you. Yeah. Did you get the music ahead of time so you could practice?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. We each choir worked on it, and we had some group rehearsals too. So there were 2 rehearsals a week, one at St. Catherine and one in the bigger group.
How cool.
Yeah.
Good for you. If you're not going to be able to make Mass and sing in the choir, do you have to call ahead of time and let them know?
No. Okay. As a choir singer, we're just one of a group, so it's not mandatory. And sometimes I have to miss. Yeah. If I have an open house that's a little farther away than normal, then I may have to skip. And other times we just have other things to do. So,
Maybe I'll give a little plug to my daughter-in-law. Adrienne Kwok-Lundy Lucchese, her mother.
Oh, yes.
Sings in the choir. Sonya's
in the choir. Yeah, absolutely.
Got to give her a little plug, right?
Yep.
Yeah, she's a sweetheart. Okay, so if memory serves me right, back in the day, the choir used to sing from the balcony. Is that correct? Were you part of that when you guys sang in the balcony?
I was not. So that changed some time ago. When I joined, we were actually singing in front of the piano, facing the congregation, and this kind of changed from what I understand. Vatican II, which is kind of a whole change in the way the Catholic Church operates. Instead of the priest facing the host and saying everything in Latin, things turned around. Everything was done in the native language of wherever the church was, and facing the congregation became the norm for choral singers. And so, by the time I joined, this was late '60s, early '70s. By the time I joined, the choir loft was just something we opened, Christmas Eve, Easter, when we had an overflow crowd.
Okay, so you would sing upstairs, like you said.
No, we just have it open seating upstairs when the church was
for seating,
full.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you had a bird's eye view of attendance at Mass, all right? Do you
No, we were up in the front. Yeah.
When you're downstairs, though, you have still a pretty good view of what's going on, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you think there's been a drop-off in attendance at Mass?
I haven't noticed it.
What Mass is that, the 10 o'clock Mass?
10:30 Mass on
10:30.
Yeah.
And it's still pretty strong.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. I was just kind of wondering. All right. All right, let's move on to your wheelhouse, man, the Lions Club of Burlingame, all right?
Yeah.
This is your wheelhouse. You've been a member for 25 years?
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah. I'm just wondering, why did you select the Lions Club over the other service clubs?
Well, so this is kind of funny. When the Chamber of Commerce first came out with the Fresh Market, it was at a different parking lot than it is right now. It's on Park Road.
Right.
It was in a parking lot over there across from right off of Howard, and I went there once at 9 o'clock in the morning looking for some fresh produce. And me at 9 o'clock on a Sunday morning after a fun Saturday night, somebody handed me a cup of coffee, and he had a Lions jacket on. And I thought, well, you're my best friend right at this moment here. And he handed me a cup of coffee. I enjoyed it. And I said, I grew up in Millbrae, and I saw Lions logos and Lions signs all over. What in the heck do you guys do? And he responded saying that, well, why don't you come to lunch and find out? And so I did, and I went there, and the guy who was behind the bartender, I shook his hand. He was a retired pilot. John Hughes was his name. And I shook his hand, and then he looked at me, saw my Realtor pin, and said, "Oh God, not another effing real estate agent." And then I said, "Oh my God!" And before I could, pee in my pants, the guy had the most homely smile you could ever see.
Really?
And I felt so at home after that. I thought, this is perfect. This is the right level of sarcasm and giving each other a hard time and doing serious good for the community. So I was instantly hooked, and within 3 months, February of 1999, I was a full-fledged member. And
good for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so besides being the head honcho at the Easter egg hunt, and you do a terrific job doing that, by the way. And
Thank you.
I've been able to go the last couple of years with my grandkids because, all the other times while I was working, that Easter egg hunt is on Saturday. And, of course, Easter Saturday is a very big day at the grocery store. But anyway, what are some of the other activities that you were involved in with the Lions?
So we have a corned beef and cabbage St. Patrick's dinner every March. And we have
Is something like that open to the public? They would have to pay for dinner, but can they just come in without being a Lions, or do you have to be a Lion to attend, or come with a Lion? How does that work?
So typically, you have to RSVP. You have to be part of the. You don't have to be part of the Lions. I mean, many of the Lions bring guests, and we have a hall in as you know in Washington Park that seats about 120.
Right.
And that usually sells out just with Lion members and families and friends that we invite.
Yeah.
But it's certainly open to the public. If somebody approaches any Lion and says, "Hey, can I come to that?" Of course, we will get you in and put you on one of our tables, and you'll enjoy it.
So there's a corned beef and St. Patty's night.
Yes.
What else is going on?
St. Patrick's. We do the pancake breakfast for the Burlingame citywide camp out every year. The firefighters do the dinner on the Friday night, and then Saturday morning at dark 30, we show up and cook pancakes.
And when is that?
And that just happened. That was in early September.
Great.
That was a lot of fun. And then we also do a couple of bingos during the year. We used to have cars in the park. We're hoping to bring that back one of these years once we get a few car buffs back into the club.
Yeah.
We had a few folks that moved away and retired from the club. And so we're hoping to bring that back.
Great.
We also had golf tournaments before. We're hoping to bring those back at
Yeah.
some point. And we're getting closer to doing that. We've had a spelling bee, although we didn't have it since COVID. We haven't done that again. We're hoping to bring that back. And
I think I attended a essay or a speech contest.
Student speaker contest.
Yeah, that was pretty good. I've done that the last couple of years. It's been
That's
fun.
a big deal, yeah. That's high school age kids. They participate at the club level, and then we have zone and region levels. And once they get to the district level, the winner that makes it that far, that's when the prize money, the scholarship money gets real serious.
Yeah, I really credit those kids for getting up and speaking in front of everybody.
Yeah.
It's nerve-wracking.
It's amazing.
Yeah, nerve-wracking. So can anybody... Your meetings are what, on Thursdays?
Yeah, we meet Thursdays. Now it's the first and third Thursdays.
So it's every other week,
at
basically.
Lunchtime.
Okay,
Yeah,
first and third.
First
all
and
right.
third, yeah. It's a lunch meeting, and anybody can come. I mean, it's best if you call us or if you come to the lunch and say hello. I am the membership chair for many, many years. Past president 2 times and membership chair for the last half a dozen years. So
you just killed my next question. Have you ever served as the president? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Good for you. When did you serve?
I served in 06, 07, and that was back when we met every Thursday.
Yep.
Plus 12 board meetings a year. Plus the convention and all that. So it was a full-time job back then.
Oh yeah, definitely, man. Yeah. And drama to go with it too.
It was great though. That was back. We started the year with 70 members and we finished with 75. So we had a great year.
That's good, man. That's very good.
Yeah, we had an awesome year. I served again in 2014-15.
Yeah.
And by that time, membership had dwindled a little bit.
Yeah, all the service clubs are going through that right now.
Yeah,
I've been in Rotary for a long time myself. We used to have Rotary Lion Club mixers maybe once a year, twice a year, something like that. They were kind of fun.
Yeah. We'll do that again in June. Yeah,
and we've been working on doing that again. Right?
Yeah, you're hosting in June.
That's correct. Yeah. Okay. Also, in your bio, you mentioned that you have a love of local history.
Yeah.
What does local history mean? Burlingame only, or are you including Millbrae, San Mateo?
Oh, San Francisco,
Hillsborough,
the peninsula.
the whole bit.
I love it. And for me, again, if you want to know which Howard married which Easton, you're going to have to talk to Joanne Garrison because she's the encyclopedia.
Yeah, she's the encyclopedia, right.
But, I mean, I'll tell you what neighborhoods formed around what time and what were the main streets and, how things evolved. Also, the roads that were there.
Is that what the infrastructure geek is all about? That you told me I'm an infrastructure geek. Is that what you're referring to?
Yeah. I mean, I'll give you a short example. The Bayshore Highway. If you look at the old Bayshore Highway around, which runs in front of the Marriott Hotel in that area, if you were to look at a Google map or an Apple map in the satellite vision, where you're actually seeing, what it looks like, you can see traces after Millbrae Avenue where it abruptly ends. You can see that there are a few areas where you can see over the tarmac and other areas where that road continued through the airport and then ended up at the other end where that United Airlines building is there.
Really?
So you could see that's a straight shot. And even if you look at a regular map, you could see where it ends and where the other one begins, and it's kind of intuitive that it would be connected right there. Because the airport used to just be a small building, and the road went right there, and you had a parking lot on the other side, and you just walked out, and that's how it was.
So you're calling that Old Bayshore? Really?
That's Old Bayshore. The Bayshore Highway, the 101 bypass was built there. The 101 was actually on El Camino until 1962, and then the Bayshore was 101 bypass, and then they started changing things. And if you continue on into South San Francisco, Airport Boulevard becomes Bayshore Boulevard, which eventually goes up into the city and is still in existence in a large part in the city. But if you drive under the railroad overpass on your way to South City, you'll see 1935 on one side and 1927 on the other side.
Really?
From where it was a 2-lane road to where it was 2 lanes each direction in the mid-30s. And then in the late 40s is when they developed the freeway. And Peninsula Avenue was the first overpass to be completed in 1947.
Now, what do you mean by the first overpass to be completed?
The first
on
freeway
the peninsula?
On the peninsula, yeah.
Wow, really?
Yeah. Yeah, and it was before it was a freeway. It was still a highway, but that overpass in 1947 was the first one, and I dare say right now that was still the best overpass. The way they have so many crossings now, with the new version that opened in 2010, it's just a traffic backup. It's Hillsdale Boulevard Jr. during rush hour.
Yeah, it sure is.
It used to never have backups. You had to have a couple of curly cues to get around, but the East Bay Shore side went across, and it was really easy. But yeah, that's kind of my interest. I love the roads and the history. I'm not good with names, not good with war history, but any buildings, any roads and things like that.
How about if I put you on the spot? Can you give me a fun fact about where we live, Lion Hogue?
Yeah, so Lion Hogue, I believe it was 1906 when that was when I know my house says it was built in 1906. It's one of the oldest ones on the block.
Ours is about that too.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it's coming up on 100 years. I think 1928.
Yeah, 1928, and then the house next to you was 1914, I think.
Oh wow!
But yeah, 1906, and then when I redid the doors inside my house, the door behind the door panels, before they, nowadays they use foam to fill cavities. Back then they used newspaper to shove into the open spaces.
So you found an old newspaper?
I found the San Francisco Call from January 16th, 1909, shoved in there. And was it still multiple places.
Could you still read it? I mean, was it pretty faded, or what?
It was wrinkled. It was not faded at all, but it was wrinkled up, and I didn't want to stress it or tear anything, so I put it airtight in a Ziploc bag. And one of these days, when I'm old and retired, I'll figure out how to flatten those out and put them in a frame or something. So right now, it's just stored like that. But yeah, the neighborhood it really started to populate after the 1906 earthquake, as did much of the peninsula. Isn't
it one of the oldest neighborhoods in Burlingame, Lion Hogue?
It is. It's up there. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely the from Dwight up to the railroad tracks is older than where I am on Victoria Road.
Really?
Yeah, that part was subdivided. I think it was in the late 1800s.
Yeah.
And I forgot 1889 or something like that. I don't have the year exactly in my head, but that was older, and then the rest of it was divided later. And then after 1906, when people were moving out of San Francisco to quote-unquote safer areas, they thought it was earthquake safe down here, things started filling up. And Burlingame was one of the early ones to fill up, and Lion Hogue is certainly part of it. Of course, the Easton Addition, there's a lot of information about that. In about 1913 or 14, they started to sell lots there, and they even had a trolley that was battery operated that went up the hill there that would drop prospective home buyers off.
What hill was that? Was that Hillside?
That was Hillside.
Yeah.
That's why it's so wide.
Right.
Yeah, because there'd be horse-drawn buggies on either side with the occasional motorized vehicle, and then you'd have a battery-operated trolley that went up the center, and then it turned around at Hillside Circle up there. That was the turnaround.
You sound like you're a member of the Burlingame Historical Society, are you?
I am. I've been a member for about 20 years now, more than 20 years, I think, yeah.
Because I know you come to all the quarterly meetings when we have our, as a matter of fact, we're having one next week, and ex-police chief Jack Van Etten is going to do Murder at the Monument.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's going to be here at this library. So
that'll be great.
That'll be fun, yeah.
I'll try and make that for sure.
Yeah. I know you're very busy, Eric, okay? We see where you're going all over Facebook, one restaurant after another. So, but that's a whole other story. Okay, Burlingame. How do you feel about all the building going on in Burlingame? The office buildings, apartments, condos, et cetera. Are you okay with that?
I am okay with that. Whether we like it or not, we are a growing community. The whole state of California is growing. We lost some population. Some companies did move out of the area, but overall, this is still the most populous state, and the need for housing is here. Building housing close to train stations at least allows people who are commuters to have that option. And my only pet peeve with it is sometimes they don't build enough parking. It would be nice not to have overflow parking into single-family neighborhoods, because post-World War II, suburban sprawl was based on the automobile, whether we like it or not. And those of us who grew up in suburbia, we want to keep our single-family houses. We don't want to have fourplexes and start to look like the People's Republic of Berkeley here after a while with 4-unit buildings in single-family neighborhoods. But if we have higher density next to the train stations and in easy access points, also easy access to the freeways, and to shopping and everything else, I think it's a win-win. I think these people will shop in the area. I think these new most of the commercial buildings going up now are geared towards life sciences / biotech, and that's where you need to come to the office. You can't work remote if you're working in a library. So in a laboratory,
right?
And so you need to be there, and so that's mostly what you see going up. Go up Millbrae Avenue, you see that. You go along 101 in San Carlos, you see that, and you see Burlingame participating in that too. Across from the Marriott, there's a new place called The Landing that's going to be all biotech. So that's high-paying jobs that are coming here. These are people that are going to shop in Burlingame. These are people that hopefully are going to live there, first in an apartment perhaps, and hopefully they'll be part of our group of homeowners as they settle in.
I'm amazed at the growth of North Rollins, I guess, close to the what's it called?
Yeah, it's the intermodal station,
right?
The Millbrae BART station.
BART station,
and that's actually if high-speed rail ever makes it here. They're going to share the track with Caltrain, but if it ever does make it there, that's going to be the one peninsula stop. Will be at that Millbrae intermodal station. And that's the reason why they redeveloped that northern area of Rollins
It's pretty
Road.
Incredible.
Yeah, a lot of housing going up. The biggest one in Burlingame so far is 420 units going up in the 1800 block of Rollins, and that construction is moving along nicely.
Would that be considered affordable housing, or is it just going to be good old expensive housing?
Most of it is going to be good old expensive housing.
Yeah.
In order to develop some area, most of them have at least 10%. Some have 15%. There's something called a density bonus that the state allows to people to add height to their buildings if they're adding at least 15% affordable housing. And so that's part of the game. It's not so much here in Burlingame. Burlingame has been pretty proactive with its housing. The state, of course, has mandated that every town up and down the peninsula
has to provide affordable housing.
Affordable housing and just more housing. And
okay.
Sometimes some cities are better at it than others. I think Redwood City, Burlingame, and Millbrae are the tops. All of them are trying their best, and also South San Francisco.
Yeah.
They've really done a lot of building. So Burlingame should be proud of itself for what it's doing.
Yeah. You've lived in Burlingame for about 40 years, give or take, right?
Just under that, yeah.
Okay. If you had friends visiting from out of state, where are some of the places you would take them to here in Burlingame?
Well, definitely we'd be on Burlingame Avenue. We'd have to go there and eat. Every time I have visitors coming in, we have to go to Sapore Italiano. It's one of my favorite restaurants. Really good down-home cooking, Southern Italian cooking, fantastic. Great ownership. Just a really great place. Limon is also a fun place to go to. It's a Peruvian restaurant right on the corner there.
Corner of
California Drive
and Burlingame
Avenue there, right across from the train station. Really diverse menu there. And then we would just walk the neighborhoods. I would take them to Coyote Point, right over the overpass, which is actually in San Mateo, San Mateo County. But that's walking distance from my house, and that's often a 1 hour walk.
It's a great walk.
Yeah. But,
okay.
But we'll do that, and then we drive around. Of course, we go to San Francisco, and I'm Mr. Tour Guide when it comes to San Francisco. Anytime there's a visitor, I take them along, and I get around, and I don't even need GPS. I just take them wherever.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
But, of course, you would drive them by the Burlingame Lions Club on Burlingame Avenue there, right next to Washington Park.
Of course. There's always we got to go by Washington Park, and then we turn in. We go around. Sometimes we'll go to the train station. That historic train station is so beautiful.
Show them our beautiful Burlingame Community Center.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's kind of what I do when people come in.
Yeah,
something to be very proud of, and I think our new town square, town center is going to be a pretty amazing place when they open it up here. Probably the first of the year, I guess, huh?
Yeah.
A couple of nice restaurants coming in there, and that'll be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be something else.
All right, let's talk about real estate in general terms here, if you don't mind. Okay, because that is your occupation.
That is.
36 years you've been a realtor. You started out at 22 years old, you said?
Yeah, I got the license when I was 22, and I started working when I was 23.
Yeah.
And 1988. So.
Have you been with the same firm the whole time, or have you moved around a little bit?
I had a little bit of movement. I was with Century 21 in San Bruno, an office that doesn't exist anymore. I was there for 15 years. And then I went to a small independent office here in Burlingame that was called Real Property Sales. It's where the martial arts studio is there now on Howard.
Oh, yeah,
Small office there. Was there for about 3 years, and then I went to Alon Pinnell, which is
across the street from Molly Stone's.
Yeah, not that one. I was actually at the San Mateo one.
I had to get a plug in anyway.
Across from Central Park. Although I went to Molly Stone's all the time.
Is Alon Pinnell still around?
So they're not. They got gobbled up by Compass.
Okay. Oh, that's what it is. Compass there.
Yeah,
Oh,
Compass
all right.
went nationwide. They had kind of a goal of being being in the top 20% market share in the top 20 metro area. So they bought up a lot of long-time real estate companies and others that were very successful. So
what about Century 21? You mentioned that. Are they still around?
Oh yeah, they're still around. In fact,
Okay.
there's an office opening on Broadway in Burlingame, I believe.
All right.
You see the sign up there, and that's part of the alliance. And then I'm with Remax, and we have
How long have you been with Remax?
been with Remax 11 years.
Is that a national company?
It's international. We're in
Really?
95 countries around the world. We have, I forgot how many agents altogether, well over 100,000 internationally. We've got a huge referral network, and the offices are all independently owned. And I work with actually a friend I met in middle school, Donald Kung.
That's terrific.
He bought the franchise in 2013, and when I called him to say, "Hey, are you coming to our 30-year high school reunion?" he said, "Okay, I'll come. Do you want to come and check out my new office?" And I said, "Sure, I'll come." And
Where is that?
it's in the on Beauvais Road, next to where Jackie Spears' office.
Oh,
used
so
to
you're
be
in San
there.
It's in San Mateo.
San Mateo there on Beauvais
Great,
Road
yeah.
in the office towers there. Yeah,
Terrific. And you've been there for how long?
11 years now.
Great.
Yeah.
That's your one and only plug, you know.
That's it.
Okay. Here's some general questions, all right?
Sure.
First of all, I need to know this. As I travel around Burlingame, we have a lot of teardowns going on.
We do.
Completely torn down, right?
Yeah.
But I also see some homes where they're kind of leaving some of the framing up. Is there a reason why they leave some of that stuff up? Is that so they can manipulate a tax code or something?
Yeah, it's pretty much to keep the property taxes. I mean, from what I understand, there's still kind of a workaround. The assessor's office is being a little bit more diligent on things like that, but we still see it. So I think it's still something that's there. They try to salvage a portion of the house, and then a lot of times the wall that's left up gets torn down at the end, anyways, when everything else is there. So
Right.
It's mainly for property tax purposes. In my opinion.
Okay.
I haven't done it myself, but I have clients who've done it, and that seems to be in the past that was the main impetus for doing that.
And are most homes that are being built today, are they adding on those ADUs? Is that what you call them?
A lot of the ones that are being built new are adding the ADUs on there. Not all of them, but many of them are just being used by the homeowners. They're not being used as a rental. If someone's spending close to $4 million for a new house in our neighborhood, or as much as $6 million in Easton Addition, they're probably going to use it as a yoga studio or as a home office.
Do you have to have a certain amount of square feet to qualify for an ADU?
I don't have the exact number in my head, but I mean it has to fit within a certain
Okay.
parameter based on the overall lot size and where it is. A lot of times they'll work with the placement of the original detached garage that we have in Burlingame is a very common thing. And with those detached garages, the lot setbacks are usually out the window, and so an ADU can be built in that position, maybe next to a one-car garage.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I kind of read this, and maybe my information is not right, but interest rates overall are coming down. But I thought I read that mortgage rates are starting to climb. What causes that?
They did climb a little bit. So the Fed interest rate is not directly tied to the mortgage rates. I mean, there's a connection there, but the mortgage rates are tied to the 10-year Treasury yield, and because the economy appeared stronger in the past several weeks, those mortgage rates trended up. The reason they trended down is everybody knew that the Fed was going to be meeting last month and that they were most likely going to lower the rates. And when they did, at least in anticipation of that, at least 2 to 3 weeks before, we started to see rates lowering. So instead of 7%, they're closer to 6%. They went into the 5s. It depends how much somebody buys a rate down with points. And certainly I wouldn't recommend anybody taking a 30-year fixed. I tell people, if you buy a house, you're married to the house, but you're just dating the mortgage.
So if you're not taking a 30-year fix, what are you doing?
You're doing an adjustable. I mean, you get it fixed for a short period of time, maybe fixed for 5 or 7 years, and then maybe in 2 or 3 years, if the rates come down, maybe in the high 4s or something like that. If that looks like it's going to be a little bit more permanent, then certainly that's when you refinance, and maybe at that point you do a 30-year fixed.
Interesting. So I read an article recently that the Western White House sold.
It did.
Yeah. The Western White House, where is this home?
So that's on El Cerrito in Hillsborough. It's a huge house. I believe it's 24,000 square feet. It recently sold for $23 million, and it had sold just 2 years earlier in 22 for $15 million.
Wow. Is that the highest price ever in Hillsborough?
No. There's another one that sold for $35 million.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, so this one went for $22 million.
23.
23. Had folks been living in that home for the last X amount of years?
I'm not sure I don't think they were full-time living in there. I'm not sure really.
Yeah.
I wasn't involved in any of the transactions. I've seen that house every time it came on the market, including once about 30 years ago, I think it came on the market, and I walked through it.
Oh, you're able to, as a realtor, you were able to walk through it, right?
Yeah, and I tend to tour religiously every Tuesday. Even if I don't have a buyer for something, I just want to have, especially the higher end properties, that's something that's not, okay, let me look on the computer or let me go to Zillow and see, in a tract subdivision, you can kind of figure out what that 3-bedroom, 2-bath, house is going to go for.
Yeah.
But the bigger houses that are more unique, and the older homes, the older neighborhoods, Baywood and San Mateo and all the Hillsborough and certainly everything in Burlingame, I try to go through there whether or not I have a buyer at that particular moment for that, just so I have the idea in my head what something is worth. So
the White House must be pretty stunning, I guess, huh?
Oh, it's
inside and outside.
It's beautiful. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't have all the updated things, but I remember. I'm trying to get bits. I think this was the Tobin Clark mansion is another big one that I toured through, and I think that was the one that had that had a long dry cleaner-esque hanger, moving clothes hanger thing. I think that was the Tobin Clark house, not the Western White House.
Yeah.
But yeah, lots of square footage, huge attic space.
Can somebody see the White House from El Cerrito, or is it pretty sheltered? I guess
it's pretty sheltered. Yeah, it's set back from the street, and there's a big reflection pool in the front.
So if something sells for like $23 million, what's the estimated property tax on a thing like that?
Well, you've got your 1%, and then you have all the school bonds and storm drain bonds and everything else that's on there, parcel taxes, and you end up, so you use about 1.2%.
Wow.
Yeah, so I would say you'd be about $270,000 a year.
I laugh because these are astronomical numbers, right? Just like, if you're buying a home in Burlingame, San Mateo, et cetera, and it's a $2 million home. What's the down now? 20%?
Typically 20%, but right now
that's $200,000, right?
That's 400. 400. I mean, and
Sorry, man.
I know, right? And people usually put more. They usually put more. With the interest rates being as high as they are right now, even though they came down a bit and then crept a little bit, they're still double what they were, 4 or 5 years ago.
Erik, who are these people?
These are people working for tech companies who, besides having good salaries, got a lot of stock options when they join companies.
Yeah.
I don't want to be specific, but everybody knows Google. Okay, Google is a ubiquitous large tech company, and people who work for Google or Apple and these other companies that took stock as part of their compensation package and have been there for a while, those stocks are worth millions. And some people are in startups, and the startups get bought out by a big company, and all of a sudden their ownership stake is worth, in the multiple millions. And that's where a lot of this money comes from. It's not coming as much from overseas anymore. 10 years ago, cash coming from China to buy properties was normal. Now it's very difficult to bring money out of China.
Wow. Okay.
That's where the money's coming from. A lot of cash buyers, a lot of large down payments. Yeah.
So what's a first-time homeowner going to do, man? And I'm not talking about somebody that's working for Google that's got $400,000 to put down on a home. What's the deal here?
Right. Well, I mean, there are always starter homes. There are condominiums to start. It's always better to get your foot in the door.
Around here.
They're still expensive. It's still going to take a lot of money. with the overall slowdown with inflation, you have a better chance with a lower down payment if you're a Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac conforming loan. Now the limits are going to in this area will go up to over I think 1.2 or close to 1.2 coming up here soon, and so that puts a lot of condominiums in that, and you can go with as little as 5% down. The payments are still going to be astronomical.
They're going to be very
that.
heavy. Your taxes are going to be,
Property
and then you're going to,
taxes.
if you're in a condo, you pay those fees to keep the place up, right? What do they call those things?
Homeowners Association or HOA fees.
HOA, right?
Yeah, and those could be pretty high. I mean, they do cover things that we single family homeowners don't think about all the time.
Right.
Every 30 years you got to put on a roof. That's $25,000. You got to do this or that. If you divide that up by month, and you add that, you budget for that, it's not as high as HOA fees, but it's still something. So that's kind of where that money goes a lot of times.
So what are you going to tell a young, you know what I mean, that are making, I don't know, I don't want to get into specifics what people are making, but they're not making Google money, right?
Right.
You're going to tell them to go across the bay? You're going to tell them to go out to the valley? What's happening here?
Sometimes that has to happen. If somebody wants to have a home, a single-family home with a garden, with a place for the family, a lot of times people, we see firefighters doing this and others doing this where they will buy a house 2 hours away and then they will stay in town with family or with friends during the week while they work, and then they'll go back to their families and rather than commuting 2 or 2.5 hours each direction.
Yeah.
Some people commute, but most of them now will work during the week. Or people who have a remote working situation don't have to commute in all the time. Maybe they'll do the deadly commute 2 or 3 times a week, but the rest of the time they'll work remotely from home. And if that home is in Stockton or Livermore is getting expensive too, but if it's in Stockton or Modesto or Tracy, it's going to be a lot cheaper than the Bay Area. You're just not going to want to have to commute every day because that will wear out your car and that will wear out your
mind.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Wear out your heart, man. I mean, just the feeling, right? It's mind-blowing. All right, you mentioned that you like to go on tours every Tuesday.
Yeah.
Right? How many tours would you go on in one day?
I try to go anywhere from 10 to 25 homes during a Tuesday tour.
Wow.
Sometimes if I'm not doing an open house on a Saturday or a Sunday and I don't have something else that's going on during open house hours in the afternoon, I may go out and do that also.
How far north and how far south would some of these tours take you?
Sometimes I do business in San Francisco, so I'll need to do that. They have tours on Tuesdays, different times of the day, depending on the neighborhood, the district, and so sometimes I'll incorporate that into a tour. Other times I'll have other things to do, and I won't be able to do the tour. But most of the time, I'll do, Millbrae, Burlingame, Hillsborough, parts of San Mateo, parts of Foster City, or as needed in Foster City, and further south too. I've been, I have transactions all up and down. I have a commercial building listed in San Jose and a duplex in Redwood City, and I've got just finished something in Millbrae. So I'm all over the place.
Okay.
Yeah.
I need you to help me with this one. Let's say so-and-so gets a hold of you and says, Erik, I want you to sell my home.
Right.
Okay. And so you sign a contract or whatever you do for 30, 60 days. Is that an exclusive just to you only? Or let's say I'm a real estate agent. Can I get involved in that too? Does the tour thing have anything to do with that? Kind of explain how that works. Works a little bit.
So a listing with a client is going to be for a set period of time, and that's an exclusive right to sell a property. But buyers are represented by all different kinds of realtors. We all work together. And so the ideal is to list a property and to expose it to everybody. And that means bringing the realtors in on Tuesdays, making sure that everybody knows about open houses on Saturdays and Sundays, and maximum exposure. And although some of the rules have changed recently, I don't know if we want to get into recent things for an archive, but commission rules have kind of changed recently with a lawsuit settlement by the National Association of Realtors.
Yeah.
We now mainly concern ourselves with the listing commission, and then we talk to the sellers and remind them that the buyer's agents want to get paid too, and it's not really feasible for them to collect it from the buyer themselves because, especially if there's a loan, most of the lenders these days haven't even figured out how to allow that to happen, especially if you're right at the 20% down or right at the 5 or whatever it is to add in a commission. So we kind of let them know that this is going to be coming and for them to expect it and to understand it's all about the net. And so that's how we deal with that. But we generally cooperate with everybody, but when I take a listing, the listing is an exclusive. It gives me exclusive right to market the property. And if the property is sold, at least I'll get paid my commission. Nobody's going to, if somebody wants to sell it on their own, we still have a right to get paid for the work we've done. So,
got it.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's next for Erik Winkler?
Well, next for Erik Winkler is to I keep plugging away here and hope for a little bit more of a reduction in the interest rates so that we have a little bit more affordability for people.
How's the inventory, by the way?
Inventory started when the rates started to go down right before the Fed reduced their rate, especially San Mateo, more so than Burlingame, more so than Millbrae, more so than other cities. San Mateo saw quite a few new listings come on the market. That has helped, but inventory overall is still quite low. I don't have today's number for Burlingame, but it's low. And
what does low mean?
Low
under
means,
100, under 50?
Under 15.
Under 15.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we're over 15 right now, but
that's low.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what would be considered high?
A high would be just, a for sale sign on every other block or a for
I
sale
get
sign.
that, but 30 homes for sale or something like that?
A little more than that. Yeah. The high would be 50. In Burlingame, for example, would be 50. Yeah. And typically the homes, if they're priced right, will sell in a couple of weeks with multiple offers because, again, there is still a lot of cash, mainly from stock and from, money that's been earned over time here or from the sale of other property. And so interest rates don't have as much of a detrimental effect on that buyer pool than they would on a first-time buyer. And so we do still find buyers for just about everything. And so that's kind of where we're at. Hopefully we'll have a little bit more inventory as time goes forward. And hopefully companies will continue to grow, and these new firms that are moving in, these new biotech firms that are moving into Millbrae and Burlingame and South San Francisco and San Carlos and so on are going to.
They just keep driving the price up, though, don't they?
They do. But one thing I just read, and again, I know this is part of a historical archive, but I just read in the Daily Journal a couple of days ago that the Hillsdale Garden Apartments, 700 units there, are going to be converted to affordable housing. That does not mean homeless shelter or whatever. That just means there's going to be some subsidizing of rents there, and it's going to be made as the units get vacant, they're going to be filled with people that get a little bit of a break.
Man, I'm still going over my math mistake on a $2 million home. The down payment is how much?
Well, that's $400,000 on a $2 million home. For 20%, yeah. Yeah.
I mean, do they allow you to go 10%? I guess they do, right?
If it's a conforming loan, you can do it.
You know what?
If the loan is less than 1.2,
I think I can make a case for renting, okay? I really think I could make a case. If I knew I had a long-term rent, right? I mean, come on, man. That's crazy.
Yeah. It is definitely high. I mean, there are a lot of opportunities to rent, but these new apartments that are going up are not cheap. They're expensive.
What are they going for? $3,000 for a one bedroom?
Over $3,000. Probably about $3,700 for a one bedroom.
One bed. Wow.
Yeah. I mean, the one in our neighborhood, the Bayswater, when they first opened up on tour over there, I think the largest unit was a 3-bedroom, 2-bath that was going for $7,000.
Oh, man. Okay, you're rocking my boat here. All right. We're going to close this up. Before we do, we have to mention your wife, Julie. I think she was your girlfriend for I don't know how many years, and one day you just said, Julie, let's make this happen. Tell us that story real quick.
Yeah. So we've been together for almost 10 years, and then last year we got married officially.
Yeah.
So we just celebrated our 1-year anniversary. Been together for...
Was that in August?
That was in August, yeah. Yeah, it was the hottest day in San Francisco. It was 86 degrees. Got married at City Hall and took pictures at the Palace of Fine Arts.
Congratulations on that, by the way.
Yeah, that was a really beautiful day, and
Yeah.
it was just family. It was really intimate situation. Had a beautiful dinner in the Richmond district at this little hole-in-the-wall French restaurant that I had discovered 10 years before. And
Great.
it was really nice. But yeah, we're really happy, and we're excited to be part of the Burlingame community. And
Erik Winkler, you're more than a part of the Burlingame community. You've done more than your share. So thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you very much, Mark.
You bet. I'd like to thank Erik Winkler for being my guest today on Burlingame. It's a small town podcast sponsored by the Burlingame Historical Society. Thanks to the great Ray Tyler for video, original music by Bray. You can hear more of Bray at braymusic.com. This podcast was recorded on Friday, October 25th, 2024 at the Burlingame Public Library. The Burlingame Historical Society copyrights this program, and no part can be copied or replayed without the permission of the Burlingame Historical Society. So until next time, everyone, see you around Burlingame. It's a small town.